Courtney Ross. Dalton. Okay. 6 people. Whoa. Alrighty. So, hold on, I gotta get this set up.
Allie, what are you doing? Alice.
All right. How do you feel about vaccinations? With research through historical evidence helps us better to understand the reasons for vaccinations. Ultimately, you're allowed to decide if you choose to vaccinate or if you choose not to vaccinate. However, let's focus a little bit more into the pre-vaccine era. The pre-vaccine era of measles was first documented in the 9th century by a Persian doctor. Later on, Francis Home, a Scottish physician, discovered in 1757 that measles infected the blood flow. In 1912, measles affected nationally in the U.S., affecting over 48,000 were hospitalized a year. With these measles came the characteristics of brain swelling and eventually fatality. By 1963, vaccines became available to around 3 to 4 million children who were affected by measles before the age of 15. By 1963, John Enders and others helped develop the very first vaccine by collecting those blood flows between the 3 to 4 million children that were affected. Eventually, what took forever, it seemed like, the measles eventually came to an elimination in 1978. CDC set a goal to eliminate this disease by reinforcing the vaccines, which was originally pretty toxic, by reinforcing it with antibiotics. Thanks to the reinforcements of school rules today, 90% of measles came to elimination, and there is only a 10% remaining on Earth. Going into more diseases that are caused and still affecting us today due to anti-vaxxers, Scarlett Ann Taylor, a 5-year-old who recently died in 2015, simply because her mother chose not to vaccinate her daughter. Now, after her daughter died of a disease that was preventable with vaccines, she chose to create the FFF, which is the Fight the Flu Foundation in 2015. Ultimately, her goal was to save lives. There are many diseases that are forgotten thanks to vaccines. As I mentioned before, influenza and measles. Now, influenza is a serious respiratory disease that is highly contagious and can lead to fatality. There is other diseases such as polio, which is a crippling, deadly disease passed through person to person. It affects the brain and the spinal cord. Tetanus, which is something that is more commonly known, is caused through the scraping and slicing by a metal piece, which can cause stiffness and eventually lockjaw or even fatalities. Hepatitis B is passed through the blood flow or bodily fluids by person to person. It is more dangerous to babies. Hepatitis A is a liver disease that is passed person to person. Often it is passed through contamination, however, through food and water. Rubella is a German form of measles. Hib, or Haemophilus influenzae type B, is a serious immune system that can cause a serious disease in the immune system that can cause brain damage. Another commonly known disease is the whooping cough. It can cause uncontrollable, painful coughs that eventually can lead to the stopping of breathing. Pneumococcal disease is a type of meningitis disease. It also can eventually lead to it can also lead to fatality. For a little comedic relief, you can also look into Bill Nye Saves the World, which you can find on Netflix or also through YouTube. Essentially, you can decide whether you choose to vaccinate your children, vaccinate yourself, and that is your choice. But before you do so, look into doing research about the history of these diseases. Thank you.